Okay, everyone, welcome to our second webinar of this series. This is one on your business continuity plan. My name's Paul Cunningham. I'm an associate at Smart Business Solutions, and I'll be your moderator today. We do have time for questions at the end, so please submit your questions through on the Q&A panel on your Zoom platform.
Okay.
Sorry, Shannon, if you can flick through the slides.
Yeah, no problem. There's Paul's photo.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
That's me. You can see me in the video anyway. You'll see down the control panel, there's the chat option there. It's available if you want to use the chat to talk to all participants. If I can please ask, there should be a Q&A button down there as well. All questions, if you can submit that there through there, preferably, just so I don't miss any of your questions. I'll try and answer some of your questions as you go, but I will save quite a few for the end for Shannon as well. Just to introduce Shannon, I'd like to introduce Shannon for today. Shannon is the founder and managing director of Smart Business Solutions. Shannon has been advising small and large businesses for over 25 years, and prior to founding Smart Business Solutions 13 years ago, worked for one of the world's leading accounting firms in Melbourne, Prague, Amsterdam, and the New York offices. Shannon is a long-term local, having grown up on the peninsula and returned from overseas to apply all of the large company practices to small businesses. Shannon is extremely passionate about helping small business and our Mornington Peninsula community. Shannon is a founding board member of the Committee for Mornington Peninsula, and has been recognised as one of Australia's leading tax experts, being appointed to the Australian Government's Board of Tax Advisory Panel, which means you can thank Shannon for many of the small business tax incentives, including the instant asset write-off, simpler BAS, and increased small business turnover threshold, to name a few. With all the changes we have seen in the last couple of weeks, it's a great, Shannon is well positioned to share the latest developments with you, so I'll welcome Shannon.
Okay, great. So I guess to get started, thanks Paul, and thanks everyone for making the time to listen. And I guess we're now doing webinars. We've been, those that joined us last Friday would have learned last Friday was my first webinar. We've been having people many times ask if we would do our lunch and learn webinar, lunch and learn workshops as a webinar. But we hadn't, I kept saying I was going to get around to it, but it, takes a situation like this to make you do these things. So I guess starting off with a bit of a thought for the day, it's interesting this word, when you look at the word crisis written in Chinese, it's actually composed of two characters. One of them actually represents danger and the other represents opportunity. Now that was said by JFK. Ironically, what was actually found out after that the translation wasn't exactly 100% correct, but surprisingly, they've just continued on with that focus. And I thought that's something to really think about, I guess, as we go through this time of change, is that, all of us have been thrown into this position, not only from an economic perspective, but, we're talking about a health situation from a virus, and all of us have been thrown and impacted by it in many different ways. And so I think it's really going to be down to how do we react to this, and how can we look at it from a business continuity, and what can we see as an opportunity for our businesses now and for ourselves in coming through this. And I think it's really, I'll talk a bit about at the beginning of the presentation as well, a bit about mindset as well, because I think that's really going to be what's going to help us propel through this. And in speaking with a lot of my clients, I think that a lot of my clients are very like-minded, and they are looking at the fact that, it is a terrible situation we're all finding ourselves in, but what can we do to try and make the best of what the situation we're thrown at, and then what opportunities can we see with our businesses to evolve and move forward. We're now all working from home, so this is what our office looks like now. We were just chatting this morning also about, a lot of people love coming to our office and getting the nice coffee and tea that we serve, and the chocolate that goes with it. Nicole was raising about whether we could even get deliveries done for the coffee or something like that. So it is about trying to look at how you're going to evolve, but this is now how we're working at the moment, obviously remotely, as probably many of you are as well. And I was not happy to hear this morning they were really talking about it is going to be a minimum of 6 months. So let's see what happens around that. So I guess what I want to go through today is the required mindset, or, to try and help you get through these difficult times, building yourself a plan. So looking at yourself, your team, your business, outline of some support that's available, some next steps, and then also the opportunity to ask a few questions. We're going to be giving you some really good information that you can go off and do some of this work yourself and try and put together this plan on getting your business through this. So if I look at some of the mindset and this and the way in looking at some of these situations in difficult times and put you in the right frame of mind, I guess one of the most powerful business models that I have ever seen is called ORBED. And what we're in a time of crisis, I guess when I look at it, we have basically two choices as to how we can respond. We can either respond what I call above the line, or we can respond what I call below the line on here. And I'll go through each of those. And I think this is the critical thing. It doesn't mean you're always going to stay above the line and below the line. And I know myself, I'm finding at times, you know, I'll be feeling the above the line, and then it will be at times I'll drop below that line and I'll push myself right back up. But when I'm talking about above the line, I'm talking about looking at ownership. So this is where we get the OR part of it. It's taking ownership of the situation, taking accountability, you know, recognize that we are accountable to our teams, our clients, customers, and at the time of the, you know, the greatest need of what we're seeing now. A responsibility, we have a responsibility for ourselves, to protect ourselves, protect our team, our customers and businesses in these times. And so this is really looking at that above the line kind of mentality and looking at it. Below the line tends to look at, oh, blame, it's someone else, you know, someone else's fault for, you know, eating that half-cooked bat in China and giving us all this virus. You know, it's China's fault that this has happened. You know, looking for excuses that, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. This is the situation that's caused. And I really admire a lot of the restaurants that have been forced to close and convert and kind of, I guess, adapting to the situation and putting themselves out as takeaway delivery businesses that they probably never would have gone down that path had they not been put into that situation. And then to go into denial that there's even a risk, and in doing so you really might put yourself at risk, your team, and also your business. So coming back to trying to think, and I actually have this mindset actually it's on our wall in the office. I have this on the wall at home, but speaking from the I and basically taking control of it, see it, do it, own it, rather than feeling like, you know, okay, I'll wait and see what happens, not my job, and feeling out of control. So trying to get yourself into these mindset of having a choice rather than just trying to justify the situation that we have. But this is one of, I guess, what I believe behind business, even before this situation, powerful business models that I've ever seen. If you are interested in I can send you the PDF of this this model if you're actually interested in looking or having that on your wall as well. The other one I wanted to touch on is also the be, do, have. I don't know if anyone's already heard of this before, but the be, do, have principle. What we're looking is when I have, so you might even look at a situation when I have more time, what will you do? You'll spend it, let's just say about your family. When I have more time, I'll spend it with my family, and then I'll be, say, a better parent. Now, what you want to do is flip that onto flip it on its head, I guess you could say. And the B is, you know, define and create your preferred way of being in alignment with your goals. So why don't we flip it back around and actually look at it and go, instead, who must I be? So if I think of, you know, back to my family issue, situation, I need to be the best parent now. We're going through, you know, and I need to be the best leader I can in my business when I'm looking at it. You know, if I look at the parent one, what must I do? I need to be the best parent now, so I must reduce my working hours to maybe then develop the great relationship with my family. But think of this from a business. So I look at this and I go, okay, I need to be the best business leader that I can by showing the strong leadership, having a goal, having some clear goals, planning out my business, looking at the business continuity plan so that I can have a business that gets through to the other side. So just like yourselves, I'm also running a small business. I have 11 employees as well. And, you know, I need to be that leader that they can actually feel that comfort that I'm going to help get them through this as well. So that's another one of these. I don't want to bore you with lots of mindset out there, but I just think it's really important to have that as business owners and as business leaders. And there are so many small businesses on the Mornington Peninsula and Frankston area that, you know, we're heavily relying on that from a community perspective, and being able to have that mindset of really working out, well, what, you know, who must I be at this point in time? What must I do? And then what is the results that we're going to see coming out of that side as well. The last one I wanted to share with you was also Sir Richard Branson's model. I don't know how he's feeling at the moment with Virgin, although I didn't think about that when I was pulling that out. What I'm looking at with that is his model, and you can kind of Google, you'll see a lot of different versions of his model out there. Some of them are kind of entertaining, that people have done versions of them. But he looks at the owner, the team, the customers, and then the business. And he says basically you've got 4 parts of your overall business. You've got you as the owner, you've got your team, you've got your customers, and then you've got the, you know, the overall business coming together. So the owner actually, I guess, kind of goes, covers across on, is responsible from your team, responsible for your customers, responsible for your business, and that all interacts. What you're then going to see is the way he looks at it, because under a traditional method, a lot of people look at the owner just to those 3 areas and crossing all of that. Well, the way he looks at it is he says that clients do not come first. He looks at it and says your employees come first, and probably many of you have heard him or seen some of the images go around social media where he really puts his employees first, and if he takes care of his employees, they'll take care of his clients. So what he's looking at is that the owner should really be focusing on how they can help with their team. The team will help with the customers, and if you look after your customers and your clients, they're going to help look after your business. So that's where he sees that circle. So it's quite a simplified version, but trying to have a look at how you can make your team as part of this, you know, solution towards what we're all going through at this point of time. So looking a bit at your resilience on yourself and getting yourself into that, that space, your well-being is critical. At the end of the day, they do actually talk about a lot of, they do expect a lot of mental health issues to come out of the situation we're all facing ourselves in at the moment. So I think your well-being is absolutely critical. I know myself, my head goes to explode at the moment at night. And so I'm often actually going and taking the dogs out at 9:30 at night just to, you know, to kind of ease that stress with everything that is going on. Obviously, we're hearing a lot of the war stories that are going on out there as well. Your family must come first, especially with the health issue, the health risks that we've got at the moment. Looking at your personal budget as well. So it's not always just about the business. You need to have a look on your personal side and personal asset planning as well, and making sure that you have all the appropriate protections in place. I know a lot of clients have been talking to us about, you know, what are they doing with their personal home? Are these assets at risk? So it's something to really think about at the moment. So let's also think about also then looking at your team. So going back to, you know, looking after yourself, and going back even to, you would have seen some of our other presentations and email messaging that we've got out there in the front cover of these slides. I talk about putting your own mask on first so that you're going to be in a position to be able to help others. So looking after yourself, then being able to look after your team. So looking at the continuity of work for your team. How can you keep that workflow going for them? How can you support the working from home? And what other resources are available there from a support perspective? And what are your COVID-19 policies? Now, I know a few weeks ago when this was all early days, and our employment advisors sent us an email with new COVID-19 policies, and I was really surprised about that. But I understand now, you know, having clear policies as to how that's going to work, it also provides some reassurance for the team, so that we are all clear as we go through a lot of these times. I then look at your clients, and having a look at your clients. what is your communication? And I've seen with a lot of companies, and a lot of us obviously would get emails. I think we're all getting a bit sick of the COVID-19 emails coming in, but how do you keep that communication going with your clients? So I talk now about a business continuity plan, but I'd strongly recommend that you also start to proactively think about a client continuity plan. Now, that doesn't mean your customers and your clients may not be buying from you at the moment. They may not look at buying from you over the next few months, but you've spent a lot of years building up that reputation with them. How are you going to be there in communicating with them now and keeping that contact? So when we get to, whether it be a restaurant or other businesses, when you get to open up those doors again, we don't want to open up the doors to no customers or clients left. So how are you going to keep in touch with them? Keep in touch with them maybe on more positive aspects if you can, reinventing yourself, but trying to work out that it's not just a business continuity. A big part of that business continuity plan is also looking at your clients and how are you going to maintain that situation with them. Look at your COVID-19 policies, especially for those businesses that are still operating, those that are operating in the trades. Now, I think we're in a fortunate situation that the trades, a lot of the trades are still being able to work, and I really hope that they do implement their COVID-19 policies. I know I've spoken with a lot of my clients about their policies that they're putting in place on their work sites to make sure that they stay safe, because ultimately if one of them gets hit with the virus, it will close down the site. So really making sure you've got those policies in place for those that are fortunate enough to still be proceeding ahead and working. Looking at your terms of trades as well, and update the terms to reflect what's happening in your business and how you're trading with them, and that may be what you were doing before may not be appropriate now. So it's worth having a look at that and having discussions with some of your clients, and maybe in positions where you may be able to help each other in these types of situations. Having a look at your contracts as well, should there be any changes, and looking at your cash flow management. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important to put your own mask on first so that you're in a position to ensure that you've got sufficient cash flow coming into your business. And that's why, there are businesses facing challenges where, their customers and clients are not wanting to pay for or wanting extended cash flow terms, but you do need to keep your business going. That's going to be critical. So, so having a look at how you're going to manage cash flow, and I'll talk a bit more about that shortly, but how you're going to manage your cash flow going forward, because profitable businesses have gone out of business because of cash flow, and that's really going to be the lifeline of what's out there. I did talk last week, and we do have that recording, just about the options also available through the banking with the secured funding that's been made available through the government as well. So looking at your suppliers, here I am saying about the cash flow with your customers wanting payment terms, but if possible, have a talk with your suppliers, especially those suppliers that are larger companies. They have been a bit more flexible with the supplier arrangements on that, but having a look, if you do have some cash flow, maybe looking at prompt payments and getting some discounts on those. Having a look at your purchasing policies. Is there any way that you can change some of the way in which you're doing purchasing? I know on some of the trades, some of my tradies have actually been buying some of the products that they need actually up front for the next lined up jobs, just so that they're not in a situation where they have nothing to be able to actually use on their site. So having a look at your situation and seeing what you might be able to do. Have a look at your return of stock, or your ordering of stock that may be becoming, as I said, scarce, but also returning stock that you don't need, and whether you've got restrictions around that, and slow moving stock. And then lastly, looking at the contracts that you have with suppliers. I know there's been a bit out there at the moment. I think today, and I don't know if it's had the press conference or not, but there is going to be something more on the rental side of things as well, which obviously is a challenging. I see that with clients on the rent side, but I see both sides of the story. I see the tenant side of the story, but I also know that there's a lot of landlords that also are very much reliant on that rent. So I think that we have to come to that happy medium on that situation as well. I know on the financing for your vehicles and equipment that some have been able to easily get those on hold for the moment. I know others have received like a 20-page application form, fill this form out and we'll have a look at your situation. So at the moment, it's really, I think, just to focus on overall and going on to your cash flow situation. So some of those who have been to our presentations previously would have seen this kind of one of my favorite slides when it comes to explaining what the cash conversion cycle is. What's important, because the cash flow is really going to be the lifeblood of your business, it's important to understand and even record this with your business and try and understand where the pain points are. But if you look at a cash flow conversion cycle is about when does the cash come out of your pocket and when do you get cash back into your pocket. So in this scenario, you're buying stock from suppliers and you're buying that on day 0. On day 45, let's just say your supplier has allowed you 45 days for payment terms. So on day 45, you pay for the stock, but you actually don't sell it until day 60. So you've had basically an extra 15 days that you've owned and paid for the stock, but you actually haven't sold it. It's just been working, I guess, stock on hand at that point. Then on day, depending on your terms, now I can expect that we will see these 60-day terms. A lot of us like to see, not more than 30-day terms. I think things will get pushed out. And let's just say on day 120, you'll actually have someone who then pays, you receive payment from the customer for the stock that you sold. So we're really saying that on day 45, the cash went out. That went out of your bank account and you're having to fund until day 120 with the cash coming in. So what we're really looking is your cash conversion cycle. So from when you put money out to when you're getting it back is 75 days of funding that you're going to need to do from a working capital. So how can you, and going back to the slides that I talked about earlier, how can you get it into a situation where you've got the supply side paying as late as possible and you've got the customer side coming in as quick as possible, I guess you could say. So if I look at this on an overall business, what I like to call a business 101 cycle, I mean, a big focus area in these difficult times. And look, I've often spoken to, I've talked about it already, but in a lot of my presentations, I talk about there's a massive difference between profit and cash. So profit is what you pay tax on. The number of times I say to a client, wow, you've been really profitable this year. And they'll say, well, I don't feel like it. I have no cash. Cash is ultimately, I often like to say cash is king. It ultimately is the oxygen of the business because you'll have situations where some things are deductible from a profit perspective, but you've had the cash flow going out. So if I walk through the business 101 cycle for you and starting up at the top here, starting at the top, you've actually got as the owner, starting at the top as the owner, you invest in the business. So often when you first are starting up the business, you're often investing in the business, and then you'll actually have, you'll also then have cash taken out as drawings in the business. Now, if we go around, you'll then use those investments in the business to buy assets, and that's where you'll actually use the money to buy assets, invest in assets that ideally generate income. You'll have new loans that you may finance, but you'll be building up so that you've got assets in the business that are going to generate the income. Assets being physical assets. Assets can also be investing in, I guess, what I'd nearly even call intangible assets, which could be investing in your people. This is ultimately aimed at making yourself a profit, so getting a return on those assets. So looking at getting your sales, sales growth, your margin growth. Some of the drains of this profit will be unchecked overhead expenses. I think now's a great time to go in and cut some of those different costs that you maybe not getting a return on investment for some of those costs that you're actually paying for. And then from the profit, we're going to have cash generated from the business activity. So having a look, how do we get that profit and turn it into cash? So profitable businesses can and do often go broke in times like this. They may be profitable, but you don't have the cash. So you need to look at how you can maximize your cash flow using strategies to get paid quicker, reducing, say, your stock or your work in progress, and just negotiating better payment terms so that you can actually get that cash to keep the wheels in motion. And I think that's one of the key drivers behind the government initiative on having the government be a backer for 50% of the loan of up to $250,000 through the banks. They're really wanting to give you that cash to get back into the business as well, and keep the wheels in motion on it. Again, the cash boost on the PAYG withholding, that incentive as well that's been provided, that's going to give you, it's going to be a credit against your BAS, but ultimately it's money that you actually, in theory, withheld from your employees and should be paying to the government that you're not going to have to. So that's going to be giving you some, and that's going to be untaxed money coming back into your business to keep these wheels in motion and help improve this cash flow. But anything that you can do to get yourself through these trying times and keep that business, and going back again, just at all times, remember, putting your own mask on first, focusing on the business and really trying to get the business through this time means that you'll be in a position to be able to help others, help your family, help your kids, help your employees. You'll have a business on the other side of this to help employ people and keep the wheels in motion on that. So it's just really important to have a look at that. We then look at your business growth equation. Now, some of you may have come to sessions that I've done before. I talked about 7 ways to grow your business. If I did that presentation now, I'd probably have to tweak those slides, obviously. But what I wanted to do now was to just point out a few areas that I think it's still, those areas as absolutely relevant to what they were before, but they're just going to be more, you're going to have to adapt them in the current environment, but I think there's still key focus areas to really help reduce the negative impact of a downturn on your business. So looking at increasing client retention rates. Now, if your business is one of those businesses that has had to shut down, client retention rates, I did have some clients say to me, well, my business is shut down, what do I do now? And this comes back to what I talked about, that client continuity plan, in being able to actually keep in contact with those businesses so that when the wheels do go back in motion, you're not opening the doors to no clients or customers around. You've been keeping in touch with them. So what can you do also for those that the wheels are still in motion? Maybe you're working from home, what can you do to delight basically your customers and clients now? A lot of them are going to be struggling. I think we've probably seen it a lot on social media, on people being kind. I'm seeing a lot of people different times, obviously being, everyone is quite stressed with this, but how can you, be out there with your clients? Looking at lead generations. Now, speaking with a few clients this week, they look at leads, potential lead opportunities. We've all been thrown into this situation, but how can you be proactive and have a look and try and find that little light at the end of the tunnel? And what can you do differently that can maybe stand you out from others that might not give you that immediate feedback, immediate new client now, but set yourself up, for the future. So, I had one of my clients actually said to me, I've been wanting to work on my business for a number of years, and I'm just always so busy working in the business. I've now been forced into a shutdown. I've now got a month to really prepare my business. So, looking at these things and saying, well, we've been all forced into this, but what other opportunities and what other leads or avenues can you use to increase lead generation? Looking at prospect conversion and making it easier for them to buy. Transaction value, that's a standard one on looking at increasing your transaction value. At the moment, your focus might be on actually maintaining it. Whilst we'd all love to increase it, but can we even maintain it? How do we keep that and even on the frequency as well? Look at reducing your cost of sales, definitely, and see if you can get a better price on some of those costs that you do have to, and then looking at your overheads and seeing where you might be able to release some pressure there. I can imagine travel and entertainment will be quite down at the moment. But where's another spot? Where's other areas that you might be able to focus on? Looking at reducing some of those costs. So then now going back to the bank assistance, I touched on that earlier. With the bank, what we're looking at here is, it's no point in just getting into more debt for the sake of more debt, but what we're really trying to look at is how can you help yourself with that working capital when you've got a situation with not as much income coming in, trying to reduce the costs as much as possible and keep the wheels in motion. Look at increasing potentially a temporary overdraft facility, maybe extending of credit, asset finance funding. I did talk about the asset finance funding if you did need new equipment coming up, and looking at the option of being able to get the tax benefit of that and then financing it over a number of years, so getting the benefit today. Loan repayments, a lot of clients have been successful in getting their loans, whether it be personal home loans, some of the equipment finance on a repayment holiday for 6 months. Now, the goal of all of that, ultimately you will have to pay it, but the goal is just to give you that cash flow that you may not have at the moment, to be able to extend it during this time. So look at what you can with the different options to try and give you that extra working capital. As I said earlier, even though we may get tight on the margins from a profitability at the moment, especially with revenue reducing in the way in which we've seen it reduce on a lot of clients, being able to keep yourself with this working capital. The other incentives coming in, JobKeeper. So as soon as the JobKeeper's law, I will do a webinar on that to go through that with you, because I think that's a great opportunity to keep your employees where you've faced a situation with such a big downturn in your business. I just thought I'd touch briefly on business insurances. Insurances is a hard one because none of them are really covering anything that's related to a pandemic. But just looking at it in general, have a look at your HR matters, theft and loss of property. If you do have factories and offices, etc., make sure you go in and check, make sure everything is quite secure. There, I have heard that there have been a number in the last week or so of factories and things like that being broken into, because we've got a lot of people not at their business premises at the moment. So do make sure you've got things secure. Those that have got retail shops, make sure you've got a lot of things of value out of the way. I have seen, I know just in Mount Eliza, a lot of the shops have actually put paper all over the windows so that people can't look in and see what's there. But they have, as I understand, in the last week, there have been a number of thefts from commercial properties. So do keep that in mind. Look at your statutory liability, professional indemnity, your key person insurance. It's just worth to make sure, and none of us love to pay for insurance, obviously, because it's often expensive, but just making sure that if you know that you do have a look at these and make sure you've got them in place should you need them, because it will be helpful if there is a situation later. So on the business, just to touch a bit more on the business and government support tax considerations. So we do have up on our website the webinar from last Friday. Do note that that was current as at last Friday. I have put some edits in the section where you actually go to watch the video. You'll see there's some notes there to say what's changed since we presented that video. There is also on our website, we have an ebook. So what we've done is we've taken all of those blogs that we've been putting out. We've got a table of contents there, and you can download an ebook which has all of the government support. We have put in there as well the different states. So if you do operate in any of the other states, if you do have a warehouse in another state, there are other options as well. But they're boosting the cash flow. That's the PAYG withholding, the JobKeeper, which will come through more. I've heard clients now getting that support for the apprentices and trainees. That's been proceeding forward. Obviously, the instant asset write-offs. On a state level with the payroll tax, I was assisting a few clients over the last week and a bit with those applications, and I know that many of them actually got paid into their bank account last weekend. They received their payroll tax refunds. But do have a look at our website, have a look at the webinar there, and download the ebook, and that will give you a lot of the information and will be updated in more detail once the JobKeeper becomes law. I think that's going to be a great benefit to a lot of us when that comes through. So looking at all of that, and I realise there's a lot to do. We will put this, we will have the recording of this webinar up on the website, probably, may not be today, maybe Monday. But also with this, we will actually put all of this up and email that out to you as well. And at the moment, really, as I said in some of my others, doing nothing is really, to be honest, not an option at this point. Going back to some of my mindset I talked about, you've got to be doing something and looking for that light at the end of the tunnel. And I realise at times that is going to be hard, because I know myself, I'm usually above the line, and there will be times when you drop below the line because it's just a lot going out there. I know by the end of a day, sitting in my little home office, I feel very positive. I've spoken with a lot of clients. I know people are going through a lot of things, but I feel quite positive. And then I turn the TV on to get an update, and I feel quite miserable within 15 minutes. So it's, it is a tough time, but make sure you put your oxygen mask on first, because it's really important. And I think even more so in our area of the Peninsula and Greater Frankston area, we have so many small businesses, and that really is, I guess, the fundamental around our area, that we really need to help all of these small businesses get through this time. Make a plan. Does not have to be a masterpiece, but make a plan. Surround yourself with experts, get the knowledge. Look, we've had a lot of questions coming in, hence the reason we've tried to put a lot of it up on our website. A lot of similar questions coming in, and why we decided to do that ebook. So jump on and have a look at that. But most importantly, focus on what you actually can do. What can you do? And once you've achieved that, what first can do, what's the next thing you can do? And what else can you do? And you will find you'll be able to keep progressing yourself forward on that. If you do need some help from us, as I said, we've put a lot of time and effort into a lot of free resources on our website. I mean, I'm very passionate about our area and our community, and I really want to see our businesses get through. So there's a lot of free information that I've put up there, because I know there's a lot of things everywhere, and I just wanted to make it easy for everyone to get through. We can help you if you want to have a business continuity planning session together. We've reduced our normal hourly rate on this, and that would be a Zoom session, for a period of time. We can also, if you want to prepare your own plan and want to have a review meeting and discuss that with either myself, with Paul or Daniel, we can book that in. Again, we've also reduced the cost of that. The other thing we're happy to do, and we'll send that out with the webinar recording, we're going to give you your own template, the template that I guess basically that we've come up with, that we're using as our business continuity plan. And I'm happy to give that to all of you, and as many, you can pass it on to anyone, not a problem. My key focus is, if you don't plan, or if you don't think about how you can get through this and try and look for that light at the end of the tunnel and look for what you can do, there's going to be bigger challenges, I guess, with this. So, forward it on to as many people, because everyone that actually plans, they've got a lot higher probability of being able to get through this, So we'll send out those templates as well. If you want support from us, we're absolutely here to help you on it. But even having and making the effort to fill out that business continuity plan yourself and thinking of those key areas will already set your wheels in motion for, I guess, proceeding forward. So I'll throw you back to Paul. We'll have a look at what questions that we have got coming through here.
Thanks, Shannon. Great presentation. We've got two questions on the JobKeeper stuff. So obviously we're waiting for some legislation to come through, but hopefully we can do our best to answer. So first one is JobKeeper payment for part-time employees earning under $1,000 a month. How does it work? My understanding is that they're getting a pay rise, are they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yep. And we haven't, obviously the legislation might change that. I was trying to work out why would they do that, but I guess we expect that the legislation is going to be consistent with that. I think it'd be just too hard to police it all otherwise, because what would you do? Would it be based on average wages for the last month, last week? How does that all work? Secondly, those that tend to earn the lower income tend to spend what they earn, and that will help kickstart on the economy, a bit like there was that payment quite a while ago that last time we had some economic downturn. So we are expecting that won't change. And so, yes, they absolutely get a pay increase.
I believe it's only, you can only have one JobKeeper payment per person though, so I'm not sure that's been monitored, but if they have 2 part-time jobs, obviously they'll come into it somehow.
Yeah.
With the apprentices that are eligible for the apprentice wage subsidy, are they going to be eligible for the JobKeeper as well?
I don't know. I suspect no. That would be my first initial reaction, but I haven't seen anything on it. So that might be, I know that they, under the JobKeeper, they actually have put some exclusions up there, but I would have to look and see what happens with that one. I'm not sure. You know, for example, if someone was let go and then they'll let go, then they get the JobKeeper, but in between the job being let go or stood down and getting the JobKeeper, they were getting the job seeker. It's getting nice and confusing, isn't it? They can't get the job seeker and JobKeeper. So I suspect with the apprenticeship, I think that the answer will probably be no, but we'll know soon, more soon, sorry. Yeah.
Does that change anything if your part-time employee doesn't claim tax-free threshold from the business, but still still want them to do a few hours each week? I don't think that's going to matter whether they're paying PAYG. I think if they're employed, they're employed. Yeah. I guess the only thing there is if they're not part-time, but they're actually casual, they've got to be working in the business for the last 12 months regularly. So, yeah, just be careful with that one there.
Yeah.
And one that we're getting quite a lot, do you know if beneficiaries or trusts receiving distributions rather than wages will be eligible for the JobKeeper?
Yeah, this is at this stage, we haven't seen anything come out, but I actually unfortunately suspect that the answer is going to be no. We were pushing last week and the week before with Treasury on the trusts receiving distributions and also on those. It's still been going back and forth now on the JobKeeper, and a lot of the accounting, I guess, groups, everyone's trying to understand what it actually means, and we're hoping that the legislation will come out with some clarity on it. But if they weren't employed, it goes back at the moment, everyone's going back to, well, were they employed, and therefore are you getting the JobKeeper? Because on the flip side of that, you actually have then businesses without employees and looking at the sole trader. So that is actually a very big grey question at the moment that we just don't have clarity on that one. But as soon as the laws come out, we will run a webinar on that, and hopefully we will have some clarity on it.
I guess that's the same if you're running from a company, but take your money as dividends or something else as well. And we've been lobbying, I know you've been lobbying on behalf of small business, that there should be something for those that for those that employ themselves in that manner, because it's just a structural option. At that stage, I think that's all the questions we have, unless anyone's got any more that they want to quickly type in. I think we're all finished up. I think we're sending out the recording, are we, Shannon?
Yes, we'll send out the recording. We'll also send out the template so that you can do the business continuity plan yourself, but also think, everyone's talking about business continuity. Make sure that you look at your client continuity. Even if you've got your doors shut now, how are you going to keep your touch points? And just, we don't want to open back up again and have no customers and clients. And now's the opportunity, because maybe all your competitors aren't keeping in touch with their clients. So now's potentially that opportunity for you as well. So yeah, feel free to go onto our website. You can download also the ebook on all of the all of the economic stimulus available, and this video will be up there. Oh, a bit of a plug for Paul next week. I hope you enjoyed Paul's Limited today, because next week it'll be all about Paul and Daniel. We'll be we ran a workshop a few weeks ago, managing cash flow in challenging circumstances. We didn't realise when we ran that a month ago that we were going to be in the extent of challenging circumstances, but we are going to do that. That was a face-to-face workshop, which I think we had over 40 there at the face-to-face, but I think, so we're going to be doing that as a webinar next Thursday, because Friday is the long weekend for Easter, and no doubt we'll all be going away for the weekend. I don't know if anyone's seen those different things. I don't know whether I'm going to camp in the backyard or go into, which room we're going to move to, but yeah, so we'll do that next Thursday. Otherwise, we are on each Friday, we will be doing a webinar each Friday for the next few weeks on a lot of the topics we've done in the past 12 months on our Lunch and Learn. So hopefully during this time, you can take some time to learn some of these aspects on your business. And yeah, I wish you all success with it, and reach out if there's anything that we can help you with, and feel free to share the business continuity plan around with other business owners, so hopefully we can help our area. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.